The guest of honour today, Professor Tony Nader, MD, PhD, MA, is a medical doctor who has a clinical and research fellow in neurology at the Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard Medical School. He's also a scientist with a PhD in brain and cognitive science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he was assistant director of the Clinical Research Center. He was introduced to Ayurveda and other areas of Vedic knowledge by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who guided his training under the most renowned Vedic scholars. He rose to become the international president of Maharishi Ayurveda universities and conducted some of the first ever research on Ayurvedic science and trained over 2,000 doctors in Ayurveda. With the guidance of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, Professor Nader has successfully correlated each aspect of the Vedic literature to a specific area of physiology. This profound correlation between consciousness and physiology is a subject matter of Professor Nader's first book, Human Physiology, Expression of Veda, and the Vedic Literature. This discovery has been appreciated by scientists and political leaders throughout the world. He furthered his work in a new publication showing the perfect correlation between every element of the story of the Ramayana, with every detail of human physiology, and the transformations that take place as you rise to higher states of consciousness. Professor Nader was honoured by Maharishi with the title of Maharaja Adhiraj Rajaram. In the year 2000, Maharishi appointed Professor Nader as his successor and gave him responsibility for guiding the global country of world peace, the umbrella organization for all of Maharishi's worldwide legacy of administration, knowledge, and practical technologies. He is the world leader of Maharishi's Vedic science and technology programs, and we're honored and absolutely delighted that he is here with us today.
Your Excellency, Honorable Amraji, dear friends and guests, it's really a great joy to be together and be able to think how to contribute to removal of suffering, removal of pain, discordance, conflicts in society. This is, after all, our purpose. Our purpose is not to promote just a system. We want to do something that helps our world, that helps our families, and that helps society. And in this context, we have something very precious, and that is an ancient knowledge system that is called yoga, and there are other aspects also of this ancient knowledge. And when we want to present it to the public, when we want to tell people why it's useful, we have to talk to the people in the language of the time. You know, East meets West has happened already. Societies have mixed, cultures have been recognized. We know that there are different ways of doing things, different habits, different traditions, and people more and more in the world respect each other and accept that it's not only one way to do things, but there are many ways to do things. But when you come to health and benefits and having programs for society, governments and nations, and rightly so, require some kind of a logic, some kind of proof that it works. And the reason is there are so many people that promote all kinds of things that governments and responsible leaders, responsible for families, responsible for nations, they want to know, does it work, or is it something, where does it come from? And there are different ways to look at that, but scientists and generally people who are objective in their thinking, who want to see results, can think of different ways to do things. First, you have to know, does it make sense? And then, does it actually work? Now, if it actually works, then you don't mind if it doesn't make sense in some level, but it produces the results, so that we can call the pragmatic utilitarian approach. As long as it works, it doesn't create side effects, then it's fine. But we have to know, when we present a program like yoga, we want yoga to be in the governments, we want yoga to help the people, we want yoga to save the people from disease, from problems, from imbalance. We have to be able to ask questions that we are asked. And that's why, at the beginning, I like to address the different questions that I have personally had to face, and we all face whenever we address programs and treatment systems that we are offering to a government, to a legislative body. So we are in the context of yoga, which we like to look at as a science and technology, not a philosophy. Of course, it's a wonderful philosophy of life, but for us to make it useful, we are looking at it as a science and technology for perfect balance and health. Where does yoga come from? Yoga comes from the ancient knowledge. The term is Veda. So it's part of Veda. Veda, it's a Sanskrit ancient term that means knowledge. So we ask ourselves, where does knowledge come from? So reliable knowledge has two different ways of being approved. One is objective way, which means you do research and you find in the laboratory that things actually work. And that's an objective way. But more even important than objective knowledge is the knowledge that scientists get by thinking. You know, Einstein used to wonder, it's like he said, the most the most amazing thing that I would think about is how is it that a human mind can understand the universe? The universe and its laws are all out there, and yet I sit there and I think and I write some mathematical equations, and later I find out they correspond to the way the universe is. So in this perception, there are two sources of knowledge. What we call a priori knowledge, and all philosophers, epistemologists, thinkers, they have kind of in general two groups. Of course, it's much more sophisticated than that, but just to make it simple for us, we can think of the rationalists or the idealists who think that in our mind there is some kind of structure of the mind. And this structure of the mind already has some order in it. It's an innate order. And that order then, when we think about it and go back to the self and to the thinking, we can discover realities that are outside. You know, this is the area of intuition, of ability to deduct things from the inner values. You have Plato, St. Thomas Aquinas, Descartes, Leibniz, Hegel as examples of this. Now, we are in the land of the empiricists. Locke, Berkeley, and Hume, who are great philosophers and thinkers, said, no, it doesn't work like this. Actually, when you expose yourself to the outer environment, the habits that you take, the things that you expose yourself to, leave an imprint on your mind, and then you think, oh, I have this logic in my mind that comes from some inner value. And this is the strong empiricist value. Now, empiricism, materialism is not the same thing, obviously, but just I put them together that it's in the right direction. A posteriori means the knowledge comes after experience. You have the experience, and then some kind of knowledge comes. Now, the philosophers think it couldn't be possible that is completely true because, you know, we think the earth is flat. We think the earth is the center of the universe. We look at the sun, it moves from left to right or from east to west, and we say, well, the sun moves around the earth. And it takes huge effort and decades, almost centuries of fighting, and then people say, no, actually it doesn't work like that. It's the earth that's rotating around its axis. So it contradicts the senses, but the logic is more profound than sensory experience. So the fact that experience on the sensory level is what actually creates our thinking and our ability to appreciate things in a proper way is not necessarily at all true. Now you get the Kantianisms and the general pragmatisms that say Kant, who said there is a transcendental deduction ultimately, what he called the Kant's transcendental aesthetics, which means both are kind of correct. You know, there is an experience from the outside, but it has to be projected on my mind, and there is some kind of an internal logic that I follow that actually allow me to appreciate and learn from this. So both are kind of okay. Now let's look where Veda sits in all of this, where the Vedic literature where yoga is with respect to all of this. I was very fortunate to have as a teacher in this area His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who has organized the age-old Vedic literature into a science and a perfect science and technology. Maharishi took the 40 aspects of Veda, he made them as 40. We can see them here, maybe from a distance we cannot read them, it doesn't matter. They are these bubbles, and in these bubbles are the names of these 40 aspects. You can start from Rig Veda, then Samaved, Yajurveda, Atharvaved, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakara, Nirupchan, Jyotish, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga. I was not going to say the whole 40 times as I'm allowed, but I wanted to get to yoga. So yoga is one of those. Now, these values, actually some of them are contradictory. And nowadays you can find, even in India, that there are people who belong to the Vyakaran, people who like yoga, people who say no, it's Vedanta, people who are Vaitists, people who are Advaitists, etc. And they feel there is conflict. And this is how with time actually knowledge gets lost, because what is a unitary value of life seems that there is conflicting value. And for this I want to take a simple example. Dryness is different from wetness. So to be wet or to be dry are two conflicting things. Heat and cold are two conflicting things. So if you belong to dryness, you're gonna fight the wetness, okay? But nature doesn't really work like this. When you take a plant, if it's too much dry, it will die. If it's too much wet, it will rot. If it's too much heat, it will burn. If it's too much cold, it will freeze. So nature works in a holistic way, so that values that apparently are contradictory are being able to be balanced and be put together to create a wholeness. And that's what Maharishi did in these values. He said all of them are absolutely valuable and correct. It's just different perspectives on reality, different aspects of natural law. In the same way as in modern science we have biology, we have physics, we have classical physics, quantum mechanics, and different fields. In the fields of the mind and the study of the mind, there are different disciplines. And these disciplines are available in Veda as these different values that we see here in this bubble. They all contribute to the creation of wholeness, which requires sometimes moving forward, sometimes stopping, sometimes waiting, sometimes running. All of these values are necessary in the proper steps of evolution. So how does yoga fit in all of that? Yoga is unity, is the value of unity, which unifies all of these values. So that the contradictory values apparently potentially conflicting and potentially clashing, like we see in society, can actually be put together for the purpose of evolution, for the purpose of growth, for the purpose of development. So that these apparent tensions from the outside are forces for evolution, forces for progress, as long as they are maintained in balance and there is no loss of balance. So yoga is all about this balance and this coming together. Now, another aspect which is very interesting is, which is also beautifully brought to light by Maharishi, is that in science today, we have tried to explain things. Let's say what we want to try to explain is human behavior. What makes our body and mind behave in this particular way? And so scientists said, well, it's the dynamics of what's happening in the nervous system, the brain, etc. So psychology is influenced by neurology. We have a science today of psychoneurology or neuropsychology, which explains the behavior of the individual from the perspective of the nervous system. The nervous system is explained on the basis of the biology of the nervous system, the chemistry and the biology of the nervous system. So biology can be explained by chemistry, changes in the brain, changes in that. Chemistry can be explained by physics, because how the physical things work, how the atom works, how they come together to produce molecules, then the molecules come together to produce cells, and then the cells create body and the biology comes out of it. So there is a relationship between these things. We had with Sir Isaac Newton the classical times of where classical physics was dominant, and then we discovered there is something deeper than classical physics, going from the atom to the fine particles, from the fine particles to the fields, and from the fields to ultimately a unified field of all the laws of nature. Today all the scientists look at one unified field, which is one unbounded ocean of pure existence that vibrates within itself. It creates different fields and forces, the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetic force, the gravitational force, and then these collapse into quanta, which means small quantities of energy that we are called elementary particles. The elementary particles come together, they create atoms, the atoms come together, they create molecules, the molecules come together, they create cells and tissues and organ system, and suddenly a human being and a society, and all that is coming from that. So the range of human life is really from that unified field of the laws of nature all the way to the surface values. And that is that unified field which actually is beautifully described in the ancient knowledge of Veda as the field of Atma, the field of the self, the field of pure being. The source of all that is outwards, the source that all that comes out, ultimately is from the inward, from the inner values, from the self of everyone, the self of actually everything, the big self, not our small self that differentiates us from others, but our true big self, which we share with everything in the universe. And that is really where yoga, which means to join, to put together, to unify, ultimately finds its fulfillment. The fulfillment is of yoga, which means literally to join, to unify. That's the term, the translation of the term yoga. The ultimate fulfillment of yoga is that sense of unity, of oneness within the self, which we are. The Vedic literature, the Vedic science, through the grace of the great Vedic tradition of masters, gave us this knowledge of how to get there, how the mind of a human being can get to that state of yoga, that full state. In yoga it's called samadhi. Samadhi means the evenness of the mind, the evenness of the intellect. The Dhi is the mind, sama is even. Samadhi, state of stillness, of evenness of the mind. Now if we come back to the other chart, one more interesting thing that Maharishi said is that actually the dynamics of what's happening here on the surface level of life, in our biology, in our organs, organ system and society, the dynamics, which means the laws that construct and determine the functioning of all these values, are the same dynamics of what's happening in the unified field. Naturally, if we come from somewhere which constructs us, we have to be according to that reality which has created us. And so what he has done is bridge the difference that we were saying, there is the rationalism and the empiricism. And what Maharishi is saying is, it's the same. The inner logic is the same as the outer logic because nature has one logic, not 20 logics. This is what we call natural law. This is why we can study things in a scientific way, in an orderly way. This is why we can predict things, because there is order in nature and there are laws. And these laws create all of these values on the physical level. They are the same laws that construct our mind. So one of the things he asked me to do is look at the Vedic literature itself and see even how it is built, how it is constructed. Not the philosophy of it or the meaning of it, just if even physical structure, because he said, this is an expression of consciousness, this is an expression of the Vedic seers, the cognition. It's not an intellectual creation, it's just an inner, a priori experience of the dynamics of the self. And this is where my research really was, for me, fascinating. And I will give you only one example out of the 40 examples, which now are in 4 or 5 books that I have had the chance to write. And the one which concerns us today is Yoga Sutras, the Yoga. Yoga comes really, the term Yoga in the Vedic science and literature comes from the cognizer, the seer called Patanjali. And Patanjali has a book. It's made out of 4 chapters. They are called the Yoga Sutras. And here we see that actually my study was to look at the structure of this book and see how it corresponds to the human body. And what I found is that every chapter of this book corresponds to one of the lobes of the brain. There are 4 lobes on the brain, in the brain. There are 4 chapters of yoga. And each chapter corresponds to the general function of each part of the brain. Not only that, the number of sutras that are, sutra means aphorism, lines of knowledge that are in each chapter, correspond to the different aspects of the brain within the brain itself. So this is the brain, and what you see here are the different lobes of the brain, 4 lobes, and now we can call them not the occipital lobe, we can say this is chapter 1 of yoga. This is not frontal lobe, this is chapter 2 of yoga. And inside are these aphorisms. They are written here in Sanskrit. They correspond to the functions of the brain related to these aphorisms in yoga. So here we see how the inner experience of Patanjali corresponded to the outer reality of how our brain is structured. Now, the range of human life is really vast, and if we want to contribute to society and make life of the health ministry and the finance ministry easier by reducing disease and keeping the pockets, the money and the budget not being abused, we have to attend to the human as a whole, to the human perception as a whole, because people make mistakes by having accidents in the road, by eating the wrong foods, by behaving wrongly and hurting each other, by creating anxiety, fear, also by, getting sick and disease. So there is the body part, the mind part, there is the behavior part, and all of these are values that are very important in the contribution of health and wholeness. Yoga is defined by Patanjali in the 2nd sutra, when he starts his book. He says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means that yoga is the settlement of the fluctuations or excitement of the mind. When the mind is excited and always outwards, one is subject to situation and circumstances. We call it one as a football of situations and circumstances. You are always kicked around by things, by what happens. Your happiness depends on whether this happened or that happened. You are not within the self. You are not established in the self. And what yoga produces is moksha. Moksha means liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from boundaries. That we are established in the self, and the boundaries of outer life do not kick us around like a football. That we are settled within, and whatever happens outside, we can deal with it in a better way, in a stronger way, in a more powerful way. Why? Because we have the stability of our inner being. That is the ultimate yoga. Now, how do we get this ultimate yoga? Patanjali describes in his Ashtanga yoga, which means the 8 limbs, Ashtanga, Ashta, 8, Anga is limbs. He describes 8 values. Now, often these 8 values have been seen as being progressive, which means you have to start with the first one, gradually spend your lifetime, maybe come back in a different life, in a third life, in a fourth life, for those who believe in reincarnation, until you end up getting to samadhi, which is the end of yoga, the kaivalya value, the sense of fullness that is there. What is interesting that I've learned from Maharishi is that actually these are not 8 steps, that are 8 limbs. And Maharishi says if you have a chair, you can pull a chair, the leg of one of the legs of the chair, and the whole chair comes along. So if it's limbs, by improving any one of these, you actually improve the whole thing. And that's why all values help. If you do pranayama, it improves also the mind, it improves the body. If you do asanas, which is the physical structure, you also improve the body. But there is one highest value of yoga. If you can get to it right away, You have a shortcut to improve absolutely everything. And the highest value is samadhi, to transcend. Samadhi means to go beyond the outer and get into the inner. And that is what has happened with his technique, which he calls transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation is a simple technique that allows the mind innocently, spontaneously to settle down. It's not a concentration technique or a contemplation. It's really extremely simple. Children do it. These kids here, mine, they do it. Ariane is celebrating her 13th birthday today. So all children in all walks of life and people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of religions, they just close the eyes and let the vrittis, the fluctuations of the mind, settle down in a very innocent way and experience their own self. Go back to the self, know thyself. That is the greatest wisdom. The result of this is tremendous. So as I have offered to the honorable parliamentarians the books of research, there are 600 scientific research studies in which I will be presenting one by one this afternoon. Don't worry, we won't do that. But we'll have just a highlight of this research based on these different aspects of yoga. I'll go through them quickly because the time also doesn't allow. So these aspects of research are yam, which is observance, proper behavior, and this is in yam. There are 5 values. Satya is the first one, which is greater moral maturity, truthfulness. And here you see, you will see the research, and I won't go through this research as I promised you, but it actually has been done with over 600 scientific research studies published in most advanced journals, done in the best universities by the greatest scientists and repeated over and over again. And you have these in your pamphlets as examples of this research. So I won't bother you with them very much. Just to go through them quickly, it's very serious, very profound. It's been, hundreds of thousands of people have been researched on this. It's not like 4 or 5 people got to benefit. It's something that is repeated with controlled studies. And here we see greater altruism as a reflection of non-violence. Asteya is non-covetousness. It shows increased strength of self-concept, decreased use of illegal drugs, then responsible behavior and abstinence, the ability to be self-sufficient. There is increased self-actualization, increased self-development, and like that, this non-covetousness, non-possessiveness, non-greediness, aparipya, you see it in decreased recidivism in prisoners. Then you have the area of niyam, which is purification, cleanliness of the body and mind. And again, here you have perfection and greater coherence in the mind, as seen by EEG coherence. Increased possibility of cognitive thinking and behavior, and on a very effective way, physical levels, there is decrease in blood pressure, more normalization, indication of healthier aging and reduction in the aging process. People who practice this technique for 5 years or so, they have 15 years less biological age than chronological age. So it's really something very effective on the biological level. And like this, we see all of the values of the added aspects of yoga being improved in a very, very profound way. Greater academic performance, more graduation of the students, and like that, even more spirituality, more intrinsic, full values, even everyone in their own religion. The High Commissioner has to go. I was told they'll give me a few more minutes if I let him leave. And I agreed, otherwise I should have stopped.
This year, the All-Party Parliamentary Group would like to take this privilege of honoring His Holiness Professor Tony Nader.
Unexpected.
presentation. And you'll be delighted to know that we've termed this as Kala Yugandhara. Kala, as you are obviously, most of you are aware of, is all arts and all sciences. Kala. Yugandhara is universal divine master. So we have absolute utmost privilege to bestow this award on behalf of the All-Party Parliamentary Group. And I'm going to ask our new member of the Parliament who's just joined us, Mr. Tanmanjit Singh, Dhinsa, Member of Parliament for Slough, and His Excellency, to offer this to Professor Dr Nader.
I surrender it to my teacher, His Holiness Mahesh Yogi, because he is really all that I say and I speak comes from him. But sometimes the messenger gets also commended. So if it's a good parrot, then it represents almost the reality. Thank you so much. It's a great honor and unexpected. Can we go on a little bit? I know the time is getting short. Just to have a few words to complete. So it's really something holistic, and it decreases medical expenses, brings greater energy in schools, and helps even naturally all the different aspects of yoga, including the breathing, like pranayama is one principle of helping the breathing to be normalized. And what we have found is when people transcend, the breathing also normalizes by itself. So there is a spontaneous awakening and spontaneous balance that happens in the physiology. And like this, all of this research goes to many levels. Even perception on the sensory level improves, anxiety and steadiness of the body is much more, intellectual performance is improved, and here we have many control groups in this area with different levels of academic performance, students of different areas of study, increased field independence, which means we are no more shaken by the outside, we are more stable within ourselves. And there is physiological indicators of very deep rest in the brain and all parts of the human body, and functioning ultimately leading to a higher state of awareness, a higher state of consciousness, which is reflected even in society. We have done studies where 1% of the people in any society practice these technologies and have seen reduction in crime, and this has been really followed very, very tightly by scientists, because it's an unexpected result. How is it possible that a few people closing the eyes and going into the self can make the criminals do less crimes in society? And that is because there is something which is the collective consciousness. In the same way as our individual neurons in the brain are independent cells in a way, but they are so interconnected and they create the experience of wholeness that we experience. The society has also a collective awareness, and this collective awareness, when the individuals in society, and only a few of them, go back to the self, there is greater calmness and greater peace in society. So this is really a very powerful program for creating conflict-free societies. And this has been repeatedly studied. In the Veda, it is said that as is the atom, so is the universe. Yatha-pinde tatha brahmanante. So as we are totality within ourselves, and when we awaken ourselves to that, we are that totality. That's what it said. Thou art that. You are the totality. Everyone is totality. And that is, we are born out of bliss. Everything is totality. But this is not only the Veda. If you look at all traditions, in the Tao, it says the nature of heaven belongs to man. In the Bible, God created man in his own image. In the New Testament, the kingdom of heaven is within you. In the Quran, and on earth are signs of God. For those of assured faith, they are within you. Do you not perceive? In a beautiful poem by, we can say Shiite today, but Imam Ali from Islam, and says exactly like Yatha-pinde tatha brahmane, which means as is the atom, so is the universe. And it says, and consider yourself to be a small atom, yet the whole universe is folded within you. Once we know we are that level of wholeness, it is a shame that we can't really use it and be it. And yoga produces that reality in all aspects of life. So it is a science, it's a technology, it's pragmatic, it has a logic to it, we know how it works, we know how it comes, and we know it produces the effect. And so if you ask your parliamentarians to support this initiative, it's because you have a very strong, solid logic, not a philosophy. You are not promoting some belief system. You are promoting a science of life to make life better for everyone and to help the government of your nation to have less problems, more balance, greater prosperity and happiness in society. Thank you very much.
Professor Nader, thank you for that enlightening wisdom. And I think everyone here have especially come here to listen to you this afternoon. So we're all grateful for everyone to be here. And it's an absolute honor that Dr. Nader was in, I understand, in Netherlands yesterday, and he's here only to be with us at this United Nations International Yoga Day, and I understand he's sort of flying on to his other responsibilities. But we are totally, from our heart, so grateful for you